everybody.
Hey, folks. Happy Hump Day.
Good morning. It
Hi,
is
Larry.
Wednesday,
Hi, Ben.
isn't it?
It is.
I know.
This
Wow.
is the Brady Bunch edition of the Wake Up Charlotte.
We've already
Facebook
put in
Live.
our request for a quad box.
Yes, exactly.
So that we can bring in Ruby to these Facebook Lives like she normally is, but we're all in different places in the studio to keep our safe distance. So that's why it's looking a little different.
I think people might be interested in knowing is that just like your workplace at home, here at WCNC Charlotte, our bosses have been taking it pretty serious.
Right.
The studio that we are currently now in is basically on lockdown. It itself is quarantined. Like
Not many people can come in here.
They don't let anybody in here. There's a sign-up sheet if you have to come in under emergency circumstances. Because the idea is a lot of our coworkers can work from home. And as Savannah Guthrie demonstrates this morning, we could too. Yeah. It's just
I know.
It presents
Roker's at home, Savannah's at home.
It presents a lot of other difficult situations. So they're at least trying to keep the studio on lockdown itself and keep the building as safe and sanitary as possible.
Yesterday, we were getting an update from our general manager, and she saw one name on the list of somebody. She's like, why is that person going in the studio? So it is very serious. It's like only basically the 5 of us that are on air and then the people in the control room. And I know at home I've got like my ring light set up with the tripod for my cell phone to go live. I have a little microphone, so who knows? We'll see as we move through this, but we want to get you just some new numbers here of what we're following. We could show you this graphic right here. Now we have 45 cases in the state of North Carolina, 47 down in South Carolina. Here in North Carolina, those numbers are including 11 confirmed cases in Mecklenburg County. I know we had one now in York County. Yeah. That was the first one there, and then a presumed case in Lincoln County.
And as you wake up this morning, restaurants across, of course, bars as well, but hopefully that's less of a concern at 8:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. But restaurants across both Carolinas now closed. That happened last night here in North Carolina, this morning in South Carolina. And you can bet it's going to have a massive impact on a lot of different aspects of this economy. Yeah. I know, as encouraging some of my followers on Facebook, you know, if you don't feel like cooking in the kitchen tonight, order from your favorite restaurant. Right. Get it delivered. You can tip the delivery driver. There's so little way we can help out right now. That
everything we do. But you know, here's my question about that, because you know they've never had this before. Does that overwhelm the situation in a restaurant to have so many orders come in? That's going to be hopefully some of the staff, the wait staff, can maybe help out in the kitchen. They get paid for that. Yeah,
that's a good question, because I was having this conversation on Twitter yesterday with Chef Alyssa. She's somebody that's offering now to deliver some foods or to do the takeout, and somebody said, are all of these places going to run out of the to-go boxes? Like, where did they have that stack? And so I know that a couple of restaurants responded to that and said that they've been reaching out to different companies they're working with to make sure they have the supplies to continue. But I know they're trying to figure out how they're basically moving their whole plan of being a restaurant to just take out and curbside.
Yeah, here's a dumb question. I mean, when you do, because I haven't done this, but do you wait in the restaurant itself, or do you have to wait in your car? How does that work? Do you go in?
I would assume in most cases you wait in your car.
Okay. And then
I think it would probably also depend on the setup of the restaurant. And let's be honest, a lot of these restaurants probably making this up as they go along, because this is all new territory for them as well.
I saw those drive-thrus. They probably do a heck of business right now.
I think they did say to call ahead if you're going to pick up your takeout, maybe to eliminate as much time you would be spending in the building. So I know there's that to consider. And then that's why I think they're focusing on trying to work out the logistics of doing the curbside, so that nobody is almost like the testing, curbside for picking up food. So, but down in South Carolina, that's new this morning, right? For the restaurants and bars.
This morning, it was last night here in North Carolina. So, a lot of people wondering what the next possible steps are as this thing starts to spread. And we know last night we had our 100 signs at the some county commission meeting, and also speaking to some of the health officials here in the county. And they said up front, hey, listen, we are getting closer to some sort of shelter in place than we're really comfortable with. We're going there in a faster fashion than we wanted to be.
So that shelter in place, that means literally that's a lockdown? I mean, you are confined? Is that basically what it means? That you're not out in your car anywhere? You're not, can I mention something about cars I noticed this morning? coming to work, I leave my house at about 2, and I saw
AM.
Yeah, 2 a.m. 3 or 4 times as much traffic. I think I'm just trying to figure out what people were doing. Were they
That's interesting.
driving around because they were bored from being at home? Are they going somewhere? Are they going? You know, it was almost like if there's a weather event and you're evacuating. Wasn't quite that bad, but it was a lot more traffic than normal.
I thought the same thing, Larry, this morning when I was driving in, and I thought maybe it was people who are working at grocery stores that are having to restock. Maybe they're working really late hours now, or people that are going in early. I don't know, but I did notice that too.
But to answer your original question, yeah, it's basically a lockdown, and San Francisco is going through it right now. There's a lot of other cities that are considering it. There are 100% absolutely exemptions to this that are made for work or for doctor's visits or for grocery stores or things like that. So it's not as if Charlotte would all of a sudden become a ghost town. It just really is like the next gradual step in a situation like this to limit people's movement.
So did we show the graphic? I'm looking at the questions because I'm going to get to some of these comments on our Facebook Live in a minute. But here's a picture. We were looking over in San Francisco, obviously, because they're under the shelter-in-place order. And I know that they've said basically you can only leave for grocery shopping, medical needs, checking on relatives, elderly. The exercise, I think you have to make sure that you're staying that 6 feet apart. So we'll see. I mean, this is a possibility. It's under consideration from the Mecklenburg County health leaders. So just keep it here and we'll continue to keep you posted. Lots of comments coming in, so let me kind of sort through them. People are asking how we would work from home if we get to that point. Larry, I know they were just talking about weather from home. Brad has this whole crazy setup.
Yeah, I mean,
what would happen with you?
Brad, you know, he has the extra exclusive fancy stuff. It is.
He's got the Savannah Guthrie treatment. Where's?
But no, all of us, every one of us, have the ability to go on air from wherever we may be at home, and I think that's one of those situations. And I'm not sure exactly does that affect people like here? You know, they say we couldn't come to our job. You know.
Yeah, I think again that's going to depend on what your job is and how essential it's considered by the guidelines. It could be. I mean, let's be honest. It's a pretty broad thing as far as what it could include.
What are the legalities of that? I mean, is that mandatory, meaning that if you disobeyed, you could be arrested, or it's just you're voluntarily doing this?
According to our producer, you can be fined.
Fine.
You know, I don't think they'll be going out and looking for people. I mean, I think, you got to assume their intentions are good and they're just trying to limit this thing. They're not actually wanting anybody to actually get in trouble legally or anything like that.
I do want to show, because Governor Cooper announced some changes to the unemployment guidelines. I'm seeing a couple comments in here talking about Bobby says, what about waiters and waitresses that live off of tips? People just obviously concerned about making payments. I had someone ask me on Twitter, what about, trying to make your mortgage payment? So here are a couple changes for if you're eligible to apply for some kind of financial aid. And now that we're seeing within the next 2 weeks. So you no longer have to wait the 1 week waiting period before you're in a different situation to where you're not fired, you're not completely unemployed, but you need financial aid. It's not going to count against your business or your current job that you would still have. So those are some changes from Governor Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that we have to think about. I think about, we talked about this yesterday, but I think about those people who are homeless. There are homeless people who are the working poor, and these are people that live in their cars, live with another family, live in motels. How do they pay for that? How do they pay for food? There's a whole group of people out there that are in between on this, trapped in the cracks.
It will fall in cracks, yeah.
We said that Mecklenburg County also
because you're too worried about where you're going to be spending the night to night. Just
the food. They do, because they have a job. They're paying for something. So more than likely, in most cases, they're paying for the food. So now you have no money to pay for food. What if there is an emergency situation and you need to go to the doctor? I mean, this is a domino effect.
It is.
I think I know that there's a number of organizations helping out, but I think we all need, all of us who can help out in whatever way we can, these people, and hopefully we'll get some more information about how we can reach out to this community, those people who need our help. And there's so many thousands who do.
Question here from Darlene Whitfield. Columbia, South Carolina he's saying is on curfew. Do you think that we will be next? Would that be the next step before sheltering in place?
Quite possibly. I think the reason we bring up the shelter in place is because it was specifically something that our health director mentioned last night. But to your point, I think it could also be very likely that a curfew set.
Now, curfew, when it's a curfew, that is a legal situation.
Yeah.
That's when you can't. That's when you can't go out.
Amy is saying, can we please bring attention to the truck drivers that cannot drive through the drive-through windows and the restaurants at truck stops that are closed? So that's something, I guess, to think about. The restaurants maybe are thinking about too when it comes to offering their curbside.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Because our truck drivers, they're allowed to drive through any, like city streets, or do they have to stay on certain?
Depending on what kind of vehicle they're driving.
Yeah.
Some are not allowed on
some of the smaller back streets.
You can't drive a big semi down the middle of Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
So if their truck stop is closed.
Yeah. I doubt that's going to happen. I think truck stops, because that's fundamental. They are carrying supplies from one part of the country to the other. So I doubt if truck stops would be closed down.
And with everybody ordering online and Amazon, they're probably working overtime right now. Let's see. Ann was asking if you can go to the doctor, grocery store. I think that she's referring to the shelter in place, and we do believe so.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Why are the truck driving schools still training? Sorry, I'm looking through some of these comments here. I know we talked about the federal response. A couple things that I jotted down. First of all, they were asking for construction companies to donate the mask, which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know if that's just going to be a drop in the bucket or really make a difference, how many will do that. They also talked about the tax extension, filing your taxes, also not taking a hit if you can't pay.
You still have to file, you don't have to pay.
For 90 days.
Yeah. So you still have to file your taxes on time.
By April 15th.
And there's, of course, this $1 trillion package that the president and his cabinet brought up last night or yesterday afternoon that now would have to go to Capitol Hill. That's sort of a catch-all for trying to incentivize people to spend money again when they don't have it. And talks first floated by Mitt Romney back about a week ago, but the idea of actually sending checks to most Americans, not every American. The Treasury Secretary said last night, millionaires are not going to be getting paychecks, he assured folks.
Right.
But to get money back in the hands of us and consumers so we can continue to pay bills, spend some money, keep the economy going is the idea here.
Ann is asking, Ben, are you concerned about coming into work?
No, and I'm not. I feel pretty good about the sort of precautions our bosses have taken. They've been serious about this from the very beginning. I've been slightly neurotic about wiping down the anchor desk right here and wiping down my desk in the newsroom and things like that. I feel pretty good about the precautions that are being taken around the building, but also understanding that even the best precautions still sometimes are not enough, and I realize that, and hopefully we can avoid this thing. But we also know, just by the numbers, whether you believe the Harvard numbers that are like 60% or I've seen 50%,
right?
Somewhere a huge majority of people are going to get this thing at some point in the next few months. That's just the nature of it. Go back to the whole curve and flattening it. Hopefully it happens over a long period of time so we don't overwhelm hospitals and hospital beds and things like that. But a lot of us are going to get it at some point. And also keep in mind, because we're hearing from people who have this, there are that 80% who say it's relatively mild. It's not bad. But for the folks that it is bad for, and let's say we are hearing from folks of all age groups who are getting this, and for some, it's
really not
mild.
They say it's age selective, but it's not, because they're all ages are getting affected by it.
Yeah, I second that. I would say that I feel like everything that the company is doing and our management is the best that we can do at this point, and we have plan B, plan C, plan D. I could go live from my home as well, so if we get to that, we get to that. But this is what we got right now, and I'm feeling good.
Today, that's pretty simple, in fact, to do that. I mean, that's the amazing thing about the technology in the world that we live in, that you can be just about anywhere and be on the air anywhere. Al Roker was using a smartphone. That's all he had.
I know.
I know.
He had a
Crazy.
tripod, a smartphone, and he had his computer next to him. So that's basically the way it is. I mean, some people have more sophisticated means to do that, but we can pretty much be anywhere. But once again, we're minimizing the number of people in our building.
Right.
And as I think as most companies are, that where people are still working, most people are trying to work from home, obviously.
Thank you to everybody that's watching. We literally have like a minute and a half left. I know I see dozens of comments that I'm not able to read and get to as quickly as this amount of time. But Teresa brings up a good point that she's been asking people if they'll still be filling the food boxes that are outside of places. And I will say canned foods, things that are non-perishable, great. And we could still be doing that. Just keep in mind, of course, that you want to wipe down every single item before you bring it into your house and wash your hands, just in case. You don't know who's dropping that in there. That's just what came to my mind. I know that we talked about, Shayna said, people staying in hotels, and they're going about some different cleaning mechanisms to ensure the safety of everybody. Airport is still open, but the president has said to limit any unnecessary travel. Any last thoughts from you guys? I'm scrubbing through a couple of these last
Larry,
comments
you wanted
here.
to mention, unrelated to all this, how bad the fog is outside.
Yeah, for a lot of folks will be watching this later on, but fog has been unbelievable. It doesn't matter where you are in the Carolinas, visibility is like this, less than a quarter of a mile. So be careful out there. If you're driving at the moment, you're getting plenty to drive, low beams, and use some extra time out there, because I haven't seen it. It covers every single spot in the Carolinas at the moment, and the fog advisory goes all the way across the southeast this morning.
Yeah, we can normally see uptown Charlotte. I'll look through some of these comments that we didn't get to. Thank you for joining this conversation. As always, we are here for you, and we will get through this together. So thanks for joining the conversation this morning.